There's Always a Lyric is sponsored by Lotus 823. At Lotus 823, your goals are our goals. We help consumer tech, home, and lifestyle brands gain visibility, drive relevant traffic, and increase sales through customized public relations and marketing strategies. Want to learn more? Head over to lotus823.com or get in touch at biz@lotus823.com today.
Welcome to another episode of There's Always a Lyric. This is, as you all know, my podcast where I get the great honor and opportunity to speak to some really smart people in different industries across the landscape of manufacturing and marketing and retail. And today, one of my guests, a really exciting guest for me because there's a parallel connection here with what our agency does, is Becca Brown. She's the founder and CEO of Uppercase Industries, a marketing strategy and consumer insights company. The company specializes in building marketing and business growth plans based on consumer, industry, and business data. Their expertise is primarily in the food, parenting, and sustainability sectors. Uppercase works with big name brands like Dr. Bronner's and King Arthur Flour and small startups alike to grow their business with smart consumer targeting and creative messaging. Becca also serves as an advisor to CPG startups. She has an MBA from Georgetown McDonough School of Business and a BA from Columbia University. Welcome, Ms. Becca Brown.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yay. So I'd like to start off really with a question about where you are right now, and then we can kind of work backwards from there. I did the official reading of what your company is about, but can you tell me a little bit what it's like being Becca Brown right now in 2023 with the economy where it is, with inflation where it is?
Let's see, we're heading into our 8th year in business, and actually our business, thank you. Yes, the business birthday is, I think it's October 16th. I sort of have to look it up every year.
Oh, it's coming up. It's coming up.
It is coming up. And I try to do a little reflecting on kind of where we are and where we've been at this time every year. And I feel like right now we've really hit our stride in terms of honing in on our expertise and being I think we're the most consistent we've ever been in delivering tons of value to our clients, which is great. It's a great place to be. Yeah. I find myself having to sort of explain the need for what we do less and less. It seems to be becoming more obvious, and clients are sort of getting it. And I think as a marketer, the less you have to explain your message, that sort of means the clearer it is to begin with. So that's right. So yeah, and this has been a really fun year of getting some new clients that I always have a client wish list going in the back of my head, or sometimes literally on paper. And this year we've gotten several, and they're often big and small. So Dr. Bronner's has been on my list for a long time. We've been working with them since the beginning of the year, and a couple of small local brands to where I am in Burlington, Vermont, that I've just had my eye on them for a while, and we have done some fun projects with those companies this year. So that's been fun as well.
How did we get here? Like it's 8 years. Can we roll back all the way back to 8 years ago?
Oh yeah.
Different world. We lived in a different world on
so different
levels, right? On so many levels. What was it like? What was the impetus? How did you get there? How did you arrive at saying, this is what I'm going to do?
So, the saying, necessity is the mother of invention. I feel that one pretty deeply because, particularly because of the mother part. So I was working at Applegate, and I had just had internally on their marketing team, the Applegate Farms. It's a natural and organic meat company, if people haven't heard of it. And I had just had my first child, who he's 8. So he's the same age as my business, which is not an accident.
Wow.
And
there were 2 births.
Exactly. Yes. His was first by about 6 months. And things were great with Applegate, but as it turned out, during my maternity leave, they were acquired by Hormel. And at the same time, my husband got a job offer to move our family to Vermont, which is where I grew up, and we always wanted to move back. So we kind of knew we had to say yes. And when I went to pitch I had always worked remotely, but when I went to pitch the idea of working remotely from Vermont, which was way farther away from the office than I had been previously, the new management at Hormel was not about that. And it didn't seem like it was going to work out. So I had always wanted to start my own business, and I had a very supportive team, even though we kind of had this hiccup together at Applegate. My mentor there, Gina, she helped me figure out, well, okay, maybe this is the door opening and not a door closing, right? And I mentioned my son had just been born. It was becoming clear to me that the corporate world was not going to be the best fit for my new world as a mother. And so I said, okay, I'm going to try to start my own agency and see how far I get with it. And if it doesn't work out, there's tons of amazing, businesses in Vermont. It's a burgeoning economy up there, and I'll apply for, another regular job. So essentially what I did was I emailed everyone I knew, including my Applegate colleagues, and I had built up a great network of CPG type companies sort of in the good food world back then. And I had the amazing good fortune of essentially sending out one email to probably about 50 people. And that kept me busy for about the first 2 years of our business. There was a big need. And at that time, you've been talking about the different world back then. The market was different. I mean, there was so much growth happening. I mean, there's still growth happening today, but at that point, there was so much need for marketing because social media was still kind of new. There was a whole content marketing discipline had just evolved, and they were trying to staff all those positions, and people really needed, I really started out as a freelancer and developed more of an agency style with a team as years went on. But that was the start, and I'm glad it happened that way.
I'm a great believer that none of us get to where we are by ourselves. We always there's people along the way that help us find our path. Sometimes can point out or give us an insight that we had never really thought about, and just in general act as a mentor or a coach. And it comes in all different forms, right? It could be at work, like I think the case that you were just speaking about a moment ago was, but it can also come in your personal life, through friendships, etc. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Maybe start with Gina.
Yeah. So I have to back up from Gina to give my parents a shout out as my original mentors, because they're both actually entrepreneurs as well. And so
it runs in the family.
yes, for better or for worse. So they are both my kind of number one sounding boards. My mom in particular, I'm in touch with her, just all the time, and she's a very strong woman. So myself being a woman as well, that's been a critical kind of role model for me to have. So that's sort of the foundation. And then, yes, Gina was my boss at Applegate and for about 5 years, and she's just a force. She actually only just recently left the company there to start her own business now, which is exciting. And we've been in touch a little bit about that. But yeah,
Sorry, what's her name?
Gina Nagel. Yeah, so she's an extremely creative person. She is a woman who knows how to use her voice and to fight for what she believes in. And she really taught me that. And she is also really passionate about the world of food and agriculture. And during my time working with her, I really learned the possibility as well as the difficulties of effecting positive change through a kind of traditional business model. And like I said, a lot of our clients now are walking that path, and there are ups and downs and there are challenges. And that's an area where I try to support our clients, figuring out, okay, we have this mission, and it needs to resonate with these groups of consumers over here, not to mention management and the board and all of that. And how do you marry those things together to both drive the business and drive the change that you're trying to make? So she was my education on that, I would say.
What do you feel like are the best values that you're able to bring to these, especially to something like a startup or a mid-level player that's trying to gain traction and get the visibility of some of the bigger players in a particular space? Where do you feel that your I guess your value proposition really kind of inserts itself and makes a difference for them?
Yeah, so I think yeah, there's so much going on in, there's the field of marketing, the field of the products and food and all of it. And I think the sense that I get from our client work, in terms of the value we most provide, is the ability to focus, for them to focus. We help our clients focus, provide clarity, and also kind of on the emotional side, even though we're very data-based and numbers-based and business-based, we have a calming effect on our clients. And so we are just great at finding the right area to focus on in the right time, kind of for the right people. So, whether that's, okay, you have a retail business and a wholesale business, right? Or maybe you have e-commerce too. If you have a small team, you either need to divide and conquer, and one person needs to do retail, one person needs to do wholesale, or you need to pick one at a time and say, okay, this quarter we're focusing on A, next quarter we're focusing on B. Here are the metrics that we want to look at. And then also, the biggest thing we help our clients do is hone in on who their ideal customer is and how to effectively speak to them. And that itself provides so much clarity. I like to say we help CMOs who are like just going around in these endless circles in meetings with their leadership, trying to say, okay, no, work for this person over here. No, and everybody just has their own opinion. We help wipe out those opinions, provide the data, and then get consensus on who to really target and what they care about.
Inevitably, in all of our lives, there are troughs or drops or failures. Although, I personally don't think failure is a bad word. I think it's,
No, I agree.
It's a learning part of your life through failure. Is there a particular failure that you can share with us?
Something that has tripped me up, not just once, it has happened a couple of times. Sometimes it takes more than one time to really learn a lesson. Is so as I mentioned in the beginning of when I started the business, we were doing just a lot. It was just like, the freelance mindset of, if somebody will pay me to do this, I will do this thing.
Yes.
And it led us down into a few types of services that probably, so it's been 8 years, probably for the first 4 years, that was fine. And then really that halfway mark, it was clear that was not the best use of our skill. A couple of different sort of marketing tasks. And I knew that, and I kept doing the work, even though, we were still doing a great job. I feel like I've never had a feeling that we've like really let a client down. And I think that's intentional in terms of who we work with, but my heart wasn't in it. My team's heart was, I tried to sort of delegate it to somebody whose heart was more in it. And what I really should have done is brought it up with the client and found an amicable way to end. And eventually that did happen, but I just let it go on for way too long. And so the learning from that is that even though oftentimes you're leaving money on the table when you have to do that, and that's always hard, it's worth it. Because what I learned after I ended up having the conversation and kind of making the exit plan with that client is that it frees up so much more valuable creative space in your brain and sort of on your calendar that you can use for the things that you're really meant to be doing. And that's what happened. So I hope that the next time I see that creeping in, I will act a lot sooner and just kind of deal with the situation.
How do you, when you look at yourself, do you have a particular way to approach things to find that balance? Is there a way that you can pull away from some of these things and go inside yourself and re-energize, and so that you can be the best on a pretty consistent basis? I mean, we're human and we can't
be
perfect all the time.
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, I feel like that's a big question, and I could talk about, on a like sort of mental and emotional health level, but I'm actually going to answer it in a very practical way, because I'm a very practical person. So I use my calendar to
Mm,
find balance, and I have learned it's been a practice of, of setting aside time, blocks of time, entire days. When I sort of have a practice that I do where if I'm feeling really stressed out or I'm going to have a busy sort of 2 week sprint of client work, I know I need to look ahead at the calendar, maybe 3 or 4 weeks ahead, and block out a day or two to just unwind and um, do whatever I want. So I, I, and I also sort of on a regular week to week basis am pretty rigorous and strict with scheduling meetings, only Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursdays. And then Monday and Friday, I just keep a pretty clear schedule and usually ends up being, time for client work or on actually until very recently, I spent Fridays with my kids. So that was something that just being diligent about my calendar. And the thing is, you don't have to tell, like if you're scheduling a meeting with somebody, I have a scheduling link that I use.
mm,
You don't have to you don't have to start the conversation with that, right? Like I don't want clients to feel like, oh, you're not available 2 days of the week. That's not a good thing. I
right.
want them to feel well taken care of and like I am really there for them. But then you just click the link and the times that are available show up, and you don't have to have a whole sort of discussion about it. But then on the flip side, doing that really helps me to protect my energy and to show up as the best, consultant, parent, friend, human that I can.
Right.
And it also just it feels doable. Like I don't have to think about it constantly. I just use my little technology tools, and
Right.
it's kind of like a no-brainer, which I appreciate because you get that decision fatigue if you're going back to the same choice over and over.
No, and I think it's a great piece of advice about how others can create balance. Folks that are listening to this and it's that you are deliberate about it.
Yeah,
You've made a deliberate choice to block out time so that you can be the very best the rest of the time,
exactly.
and that you can be the best for folks on both sides, right? Those people in your personal life as well as your clients. That's a great piece of advice, being deliberate and actually just making the time and then setting it. You have it as a perpetual. You don't reinvent the wheel every week.
Yeah, exactly.
That's great. Which, speaking of advice, all these questions are kind of cascading today, but
Yeah,
uh
it works well.
speaking of advice, can you share some advice now that you've been doing this 8 years? It's not like you're a newbie. You didn't start a year ago or 6 months ago. The company's now 8 years down the road. Can you share some advice for that entrepreneur that's listening or thinking about, I think I can do this, whatever that
Yeah.
whatever that company or business that they're thinking about? What can you share as far as from your experience over the past 8 years?
Yeah, so I think, when any type, this is true for any type of business, but especially for a consulting business, whether you're a marketing consultant or a different kind of consultant, there's so many things that you can do when you're starting out, right? It's an endless menu of options.
That's right.
But my advice is that all you need to be a business is one client. You need one client, and that's it.
Mhm.
And you don't need a website. You don't need you don't even, I mean, it's great to have a capabilities, blurb that you can email people, but you don't even need that. You need one client, which usually means you need to know one person who
Mhm.
you think you could help, and you need to talk to them about it. Whether that's at a coffee shop or on the phone, or you ask, your best friend to introduce you. You
Right.
just need that one person, and then you're going. And because when what I see over and over is that when you're starting out, you're going to pour your heart into that first client,
Mhm.
the first few clients. They're going to give you glowing reviews. It starts this beautiful virtuous cycle.
Mhm.
And also, you don't need to know exactly every detail of what you're going to deliver to them. You just need to trust yourself that you'll know what they need when it's in front of you. I see people agonize over like, oh, am I offering 2 calls in the first month or just one? You just go start doing it
Mhm.
and you'll figure it out. So that's my advice.
I think that's great advice, and you're right. It starts with one.
Yeah.
If you can just break it down to that, it starts with one, and now you're in business.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. Okay, so my favorite question, and the foundation of this entire podcast.
Yes.
If there was one song title or lyric that captures you or your story, what would it be?
So yes, I had this was hard for me because I was really overthinking it at first. I was like, what, it has to be like a deep song, like a Beethoven symphony if we're encapsulating my whole life. But actually, then I was thinking about this, one of the songs I listen to in real life
Mm.
most often, and it's Good Morning by Max Frost.
Mm.
And I don't know if you know the song. You have, obviously you'll listen to it after we talk. I hope you guys, I recommend that you do. But you were saying before, you know, something about how when you're talking about identity and betting on yourself, that's what you said. And this song really brings that to life. It starts out like the chorus says, "Baby, it's a brand new day."
Uh-huh.
And then it's a song about how every day is a new day and you have a chance to start again and to have a good morning. And then one another lyric is, "The rest of my life is going to start today." And so I love that. I love the song because, if I'm in a good mood and I wake up, it just perpetuates the good mood. I listen to it a lot when I go running in the morning.
Mm.
If I'm in a bad mood, it shakes me out of my bad mood and helps remind me that, like, I control my own destiny. I
Yeah.
have the option to bet on myself.
Yeah.
It's my choice to have a good day or a bad day. And I
Right.
think as an entrepreneur, you need to remind yourself that a lot, right? Every
Yeah.
day you're
Oh,
choosing
yeah.
to go out and do this thing. You got to give yourself a lot of pep talks.
Yeah.
And, and it can be daunting to be in charge of making your own destiny, but it's also, I mean, I think it's the most fun part of what we do, and it's exciting. So this song always reminds me of that and kind of gets my head in the game where it needs to be.
That's really it's actually a great way to live. In that song, I think you've really captured the idea of controlling your destiny, because the one thing you can control is your attitude about
Right.
the
Yeah.
day, about what's happening at any given moment. So that's really beautiful. It's almost Buddhist, there's sort of a Buddhist quality there to it.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
That you kind of are, you're kind of in charge of how your perception of your life is and how your day is and what you're doing. It's all through you.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. So I have to
Thanks.
put Max on my list. I'm listening to him.
You will, yeah. And it's also like, it's not a serious song. It's very peppy and funny and fun. And so I think that actually helps with the sort of
Yeah, yeah,
dealing with the weight of it all.
agree. Well, Becca, this has been truly, truly a pleasure. And we went down some interesting roads while we spoke.
Yeah.
Um, Thank you so much for your time today, first of all.
Yeah.
And for those that are in the brand world, please take a look at Uppercase Industries. Um, I love what you said about using data to make decisions and not just emotions, because the numbers don't lie. And
So true.
that's it's critical when you're thinking about a brand launching a new product line or launching a category or just launching a brand, period. You really need to understand who that customer is. And I think a lot of times, and I think you've come across this on your side of the aisle, like we have on our side of the aisle, is uh, you speak to some of these brands that are launching, and they really have obviously a very deep understanding of their product, but not necessarily of exactly who the customer is, because
Yes,
they're in love with their creation,
exactly. Which they should be,
and
but
they should be, but that's why
yeah,
you come in. It's
that's why I have a job.
anyway. Thank you so much. It's really been a pleasure, and I'm going to be listening to that song later today for sure.
Good, great. Well, thank you so much for having me. This has been a treat.
Thank you.